think we anticipate the foot traffic to go, flowing, and so we may as well just get started, right? Does everyone have roughly 9:15? Cool. Welcome for coming here today to this talk on UX on a lab style team. It's awesome. Keep on coming in. Totally cool.
Yep. I'm Arthur Bossing. I guess this is working. User interface, experience designer for our EGI team. Last night for dedicated working on projects for small apps, their e-commerce system. I'm Rad, formerly Rad, currently EGI teams. I do user research, design, supplement development. I occasionally write on my blog.
We all underfeed our blogs. I'm Rob Stenzinger. I do a bit of coding and design and facilitation of creative sessions at Target, formerly on the RAD team and now on EGI, where it's other things I do because I like to make stuff. I podcast at leanintoart.com. I make video games and teach workshops. And 3, 2, 1, our opinions are our own and don't represent our employer. Almost got it done.
What do we mean by a lab style team? Mostly it's testing, lots of testing. We're set up to explore. We use evidence-based design techniques to help us find and pursue a sense of desirability, viability, feasibility. Our team is small and nimble, so we can be quick to responding to data and analysis.
I saw that.
Yeah, sure, I can get that.
All right. Well, I said over there, quick question for the group. What are some attributes, keywords, keywords, if you can? Yeah.
Collaboration.
Yep.
Also testing devices.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's a lot of applied research, experimentation, driven by goals and hypotheses. We go after hypotheses that seem to show the most potential for accomplishing business goals and use cases. We use this evidence to inform our design choices.
And so, so part of what we want to talk about is like, well, how did this particular agile, evidence-based team come about? Every team's got their own story, and this is a little bit of ours, right? Where I think we benefit from how UX and agile approaches, capital A, small a, what have you, they're just getting around, and it's because it's that adoption has. I think there's just different forces involved. I mean, some of it's very pragmatic, some of it's lifestyle. Well, some of it's so like the creative folks who live under that endorse it and enjoy it. So that's one reason. But then you have the market forces where competitors are able to put products into the field quicker and get some feedback, iterate and revise, which makes them more capable, right? And so I don't know, like I think it's just in the air, and and we benefit from that. So whatever the forces are, the desire to adapt and improve is completely helping push the adoption of UX and Agile.
As we've gotten better at this internet thing, we've moved towards a more iterative targeting, testing, learning. A lot of us are moving towards being agile and actually being agile. Overall, just a movement towards being more user-centric. These movements are making it easy within corporate walls to varying degrees, but everyone's slowly headed there. Within Target, about 3 years ago, a group of connected, caring people saw this kind of outside of the walls and started a movement within Target. Out of that came teams like Cartwheel, kind of Target's first big success in this area. Does everyone know what Cartwheel is?
Oh, cool.
So once Cartwheel was a success, started to take off, other product teams were started. That's where the team we started came.
And so this team itself was an experiment within this overall set of experiments where, okay, so we have like this product style way of making things, but then, well, what if you went for more of the like the even scrappier, get some hypotheses out into the field and build stuff around it. That's where the RAD team came from, and that's where Arthur and I began our particular lab style UX adventure at Target. Yeah. It stands for a lot of things. Honestly, what do you think it stands for? Exactly, and also rapid accelerated development. So the redundancy helps push it the speed quicker, I guess. But yeah, it's and also it's rad. So anyway, any of your assumptions are correct.
We might have started with the acronym.
It could have been. I think it was a backronym.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea behind RAD, I mean, to try to make it just more tangible, it's like instead of prototyping ideas over the course of like a year or years, as was traditional at Target, and Target doesn't stand alone. I mean, those kinds of approaches are stable and safe and widely adopted all over the place, right? So. But what if, hey, this team is an experiment. What if we could take that and make it more months or weeks or days? And that's what we're here to try. Build prototypes, test hypotheses, and embrace principles as we do that. And then be sure to share that back with the rest of the company as we did. So part of the job was to be advocates as we were trying things like valuing skills over roles and valuing results over documentation. And of course, like I think we've said it probably 5-6 times already, evidence-based design. And as we're doing that, we worked, this is where our team started out, we called it the Fishbowl, and there were just tours of people, curious minds, not like open to the public, there weren't tickets being sold, but like it sometimes felt like it. But there was curious people would walk through and be like, how are you doing this? How are you making stuff happen? And we basically live in our documents. And that helped a lot. And that's like the most of the what we did.
Yeah, so the first 8 months were at kind of a proof of concept. This was new to not just Target, but most corporate stuff, right? Get a small team of cross-functional people kind of throw them together and see if they can make successful products. About 8 months into it, there were a few successful products, and RAD expanded. That's when I joined. JR, who's in the crowd here. We joined, and so did Donnie, another guy. We had kind of a small RAD team too, so we could spin up multiple projects at once and kind of handle full back end, front end, kind of the whole product. After that, we brought in some TLPs, technical leadership program from Target. They're right out of school. They were a huge help. They kind of gave us a new view on things, the Yanders and the rest of us. So it was good. They've been a huge help. So after that, the model was growing to be sustainable. We had people with, I think we can see here, lots of different backgrounds, lots of different skill sets. I think there's people even with one tag up there. They have UX, the Notting Consensus, user research through traditional wireframing and all that stuff. Lots of what the traditional T-shaped people like.
And so talk about some of the what and the who, and think of the how. How did this work, right? I don't know. I've got more, so a little bit of hand waving to do, but I am disadvantaged as I look up way up there at the screen. But this drawing, this doodle, represents an idea of how did we work in parallel, and what does that kind of look like as something matures over time, and also evolves from concept to its minimum viable product, right? And there's a lot of emphasis, admittedly, on the front end here in this diagram, but truly this could be a lot taller and whatnot. And there's a hint of it at the bottom with other roles being noted as far as other aspects of design and engineering. And the key to this is to keep in mind is that we're trying to find a way to work in parallel as much as possible, as opposed to being in a sequence of those stages with a lot of expensive handoffs. Where, let's see. First, we would need to begin with a strong hypothesis, and this is like an oversimplification. There's a lot of work that got to this point, so the team is set up well to succeed in exploring this space with the product and its given users, right? So from the strong hypothesis, we start to work in the conceptual realm and sketch and involve as many people who are interested in and as we can early on. A lot of times you think, oh, we don't need to have someone who's interested in storing data or presenting an API when we're thinking about the users and whatnot right in the beginning. But actually, it's great and super empowering to help the project as early on as possible by, actually, yeah, thanks. Because what we're trying to do is get tons of critique and feedback from a variety of perspectives to strengthen the ideas. And you go from, for instance, these different sections can be different technologies, but we go from sketching to where it could be, totally whiteboarding and Post-its into clickable prototypes, like using prototype on paper or what have you. Then moving into a little more robust tool to represent the concepts called Axure, or,
Yeah, InVision, Photo.io, the new Adobe one, which I'm starting to play with, which is kind of fun.
Yeah.
Tools like that.
There's always stuff that's changed, but what we're doing that's stable is like we're maturing the idea and we're testing it. And so as we're going up these stages, think of these dots in a way as like we're shipping stuff. There's releases going on. So we have the shipped and tested versions of the sketches that become the Axures that become HTML. And all of a sudden, wait a minute, we're doing two different activities at the same time for the front end. And that also is this diagram's hiding how much is going on behind the scenes to be ready to then support deeper and deeper system capabilities throughout to essentially switch as we're using evidence at every one of these stages to help inform what we design next to eventually switch where like the job that we're hiring the Axure to do is now all of a sudden being flopped over to the HTML prototype, or it could be iOS app or Android app or whatever we happen to be working in at the time. Let's see. A lot of that is, we couldn't do that if we weren't constantly sharing our work in progress and just breaking down as many barriers as possible across the roles, where we're in that little fishbowl, right? And that helps a lot. We're just sort of checking out one another's work, asking for critique, and working in parallel as much as possible.
Yeah, and I think that is key here. I mean, this is an example of one way we've done it, but this shifts and changes depending on what the project is. Yeah, every project's a little bit different. Yeah, so if you're collaborative and evidence-based, you find new ways to work in parallel. This really, the big thing about this is it means everyone is a part of the testing. Each team member should partake in the testing in some way, whether it's in-person interviews, observing remote sessions. Afterwards, the entire team should sit down and make sure each team member has a chance to see the data, talk about the data, give their opinion, make sure everyone's kind of on the same page with what the data actually says. As we all know, interpretations and stuff can be different, so having the team agree on what you're actually seeing is really important. Who thinks working parallel sounds risky? Said you don't need to answer. Jared, that's the thing, by the way.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is in some ways. It's about trading risks. You do things over and over a lot more. I can think of a few examples in the past week or two, which Jared is still mad at me about. Our feedback loop for critique is a lot shorter though. So another process is waterfall especially. It takes much longer. You can be 6 months down the road and realize you made a mistake and you can't fix it. Your best thing you can do is hopefully slap a Band-Aid on it and fix it next time. That's obviously not optimal for anyone in this room or our users. So working in shorter cycles and doing things over lets you catch those mistakes before they go out in the world. You don't have the time to do deep thinking. Those long pondering sessions, we're going to be honest, aren't that productive anyways. You don't really have time for those, but that feedback and evidence lets you kind of short circuit the need for those. In the end, there's different risks, different benefits. But overall, for businesses, this is cheaper and faster and less risky. For users, it's just a better product, and overall, it is more responsible.
So again, so part of this narrative is like the evolution of like how our team was being of service in this space, and there was a point where as Arthur was describing, the team became robust enough, and it wasn't just like a core group of veterans just testing out a wild idea. It became sustainable, and then it went from that to being recognized as, well, what if we could do this in other areas? And so essentially RAD got moved into a different group. It got moved into corporate strategy to try to do a similar thing in a different space. And that group is called EGI, Enterprise Growth Initiatives. Different feeling name than RAD. And also a bit of a different mission, right? So another doodle, a little more hand waving. Still a very tall screen. So you think of that diagram that we looked at earlier and how it started at the strong hypothesis. You think of, in a way, this is another view of that, but it's all on the right side of this, right? Where that prior diagram focused on iteratively testing and evolving something to hone it, make it better and more relevant based on evidence and iteration. But then how do you start? You start at that strong hypothesis, and it's so easy to sort of just like say, oh, you can really oversimplify the value of that. To get there, there's a different journey to arrive at that place to then invest, right? So it's about seeking potentially desirable, feasible, and viable concepts worth that investigation. And essentially, so the team went from hired to focus on that side of the diagram to then also now adding services on the other side as well. Much more, much bigger journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe everybody knows this, but what did you design? What were you working on?
We do have some examples coming up, so we'll share some tangible things.
Okay, so this is a
Couple things.
project, it's your process.
Yeah.
Process. We have
Exactly.
projects coming up here.
And also the part of the story is too, the team is part of the project and exploring that too. But yes, we have actual things we made to talk about as well. Totally reasonable.
Yeah, so as UXers, we have an expanded set of services and offerings, kind of this new context where we're doing the front half and the back half of a project. We're now really working with goal-based personas, wireframes. We've always done interactive prototypes, but we're doing a lot more of them, along with kind of the standard usability testing, full flows, facilitation. Once we're done with any of these, we do them again until the right solution is found, and again and again and again. Again, just being iterative. I think what's really important about any of these tasks, any of the UX stuff in general, is they're not necessarily a process. You don't need to do one and then the other. We pick and choose what we need to do and iteratively.
How do you decide when you've landed on the right solution?
Usually with testing. So we'll put it out in front of people and we'll do 2 or 3 concepts or just iterations of a concept and kind of see what wins.
It depends on what we need to learn, right? So if we feel confident, so part of it is it's an applied research kind of thing where it's like, do we feel like we've reduced the risk in moving forward? And if you have people from different perspectives agreeing on that, then, and we've scrutinized it, then we feel confident. So.
So you said it started as a small kind of experimental group, just
Yep.
trying a different way of working, but then that worked or seemed like it was working, and the larger corporate structure decided, like, let's take a bite out of it. Did it maintain its viability once the larger corporate entity decided that it needed to have its fingers in it?
Let's see. I think I can completely feel what the perspective I think you're coming from, right? Did it affect things? Yes. And we're still adapting and evolving. I mean, so in a way we got.
Relatively recent situation?
Yeah, it's been about 6 months.
Oh,
So
okay.
we're still working through it. But yeah, I'd say the team did a change. And that's really kind of the core, right? We're still working with the same people. We're all still sitting next to each other. So we just have new projects. So and that seems
Oh, so they just changed the team's focus, they didn't necessarily like add different structure to it?
No. So far we've been pretty structure free. We're doing
determines which projects you work on and what priority?
That's always, it's so funny. We've always, honestly, I think it's ever since the team, this is my interpretation, again, my opinions are my own. It's never really been like a tightly regulated thing. We've always had a story about it, but if you've ever stood back and looked like at the sequence of events that happened, how we had ended up with a project, it's been, because theoretically there was a group feeding RAD projects before that, but you involve a bunch of people who are informal and yet disciplined and not inherently hierarchical. People could just talk with us too, and all. So there's just stuff comes in, and then it gets. If we have resources to explore it, we will. And some of that could come in through like what we'll talk about up in a few more slides. Is like just making sure we have some time to keep evolving and look in scrutinizing our process and how we can make things better. And so we'll sometimes squeeze in thinking about those ideas. So it's honestly I couldn't answer that quickly because it just happens in very naturally in a variety of ways.
I think one important thing though is that we do have a set of criteria. So we look at feasibility of the project, feasibility of the project in kind of corporate environment, technologically it can be done. We look at kind of what would a user path be, and is there evidence out there for not like the execution of the idea, but for the actual need of that idea, because they're two very separate things, right? So we do have a kind of we used to call it the calculator when we were RAD. Now it's a little bit expanded in DGI, but it's still kind of that same idea. So we do have kind of a basis to level 7.
Could you talk a bit more about how you used to develop strong hypotheses versus?
So a lot of it someone would come to us through that other team, right? And then they would essentially we would go through a design workshop, what we call it, which is a hybrid of design thinking and like sort of a project kickoff, and with a crap ton of critical thinking and creative thinking. And so think of that as like a really, in a way, like an intense machine to put that idea through. And so that would sometimes lead to people saying, you know what, I don't think we're ready, and they would back away. And other people, they would feel extra ready to know what they should do for the next step. Because one of the big things out of that process is a recommendation for minimum viable product. So, yeah.
One more question.
Yes.
How do you decide when to kill a project? Is that harder than to take one on?
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, we actually killed it not that long ago. Again, testing. So testing whether it's needed. We just went through a long process with one project where we drug it on for probably a month longer than we needed to, just to make sure it wasn't needed. So we tested kind of the hypotheses behind it. We found there wasn't a lot of need for it, and looked to see if it could pivot into another direction that was, anything any of us wanted to work on, right? Because wanting to work on a project is important when you have a small team. And it wasn't quite there. What's funny though is out of that did come a couple of small sets of projects that were worth working on. So I think one cent is still kind of lingering out there and being worked on. But overall, yeah, the project is there. And it was testing that for showed us to move on.
If I could add a couple things to that, it's I hope maybe for like future analysis and reflection, like we could, there's this threshold there where you can present evidence, but people don't have to agree with it, or because it's like, but it's my idea, so what? Do it anyway. And honestly, it's a combination of having a lot of empathy and trying to find a way to make that evidence relatable to who is in a situation to have a lot of influence as a stakeholder on a project and why it's there and whatnot. So it's something we constantly practice, and it has worked. Maybe so we have killed things, and yet, some things we haven't totally killed because we still believe in them, and we're just looking for a home for them still. So
That's it. Yeah, a year and a half in, this is still an experiment.
totally learning a ton of stuff. Yes.
I noticed in your last slide that you had service design up there.
Yeah.
I'm curious about whether you're finding that, well, I guess part one, are you working primarily in digital space?
Not anymore.
So that is expanding?
Yeah.
You're able to
Yeah.
look more in that. How is that going, and how is that being accepted by the people who that's been their domain historically?
like adoption's always easier when someone feels the pain and the need to adopt. So, and it helps that, I mean, we're inherently here to advocate for stuff too, so we're pitching. And so it's constantly trying to sell something that heals a pain. If we do, we're in the right place at the right time, and then it's easy. If we're not, then it's really, really hard.
Yeah, we're currently working on a last mile project, very much service design. And we've been reaching out to various groups within Target that have traditionally handled various aspects of that. And what we found is they're all hungry to make change. They all want to work quicker and do something different. But they're stuck on 5-hour conference calls with a vendor who needs too much information about something. Once they spend a few days with our team, they want to go back, right? Because we can move quickly with new stuff because we're small and we don't have a 500-person org behind us. So it is a balance, but if we work with them and we reach out, usually things go pretty well. So
Yep, does help. Yes.
So with regards to the enterprise growth initiative,
Yeah.
what seems to be the focus? Is it like about market penetration, traffic increase?
So growth is money. So it's applied research. Build things that make money. It's a big part of it. So we have like those 3 circles. A lot of people who talk. So if you look at check out resources on like innovation, right? So what are 3 really useful lenses to look at healthy ideas and innovation? It comes down to is something desirable from the human factors? Is there pain? Is there need? Is there a job to be done? And then you've got the viable aspect, like, hey, is there money in this space? Is there really things? Are people really buying stuff? Or is this a hype cycle thing or whatever, right? So the viability, and then you got the feasibility. It's a big Venn diagram, right? So the feasibility, it's like, yeah, and we can build it, right? We've got stuff that lets us get there. And let's see, did that help?
Yeah, I think
A little bit? Yeah.
another thing we're tasked with is looking at what Target can do right now, what Target can do in the next 5 years. And we're supposed to play in this space kind of past 5 years. Not necessarily do what Target is currently doing or planning on doing right now, but look a few steps ahead so that when we get there, we're already ready. We already have those things set up. So it helps us avoid conflicts with what's already going on in a larger corporate structure. But it also helps Target actually be around in the future, which is fun.
Yes.
Can I ask one more question?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah.
So I'm in a small service design team with a very large corporation.
Right.
And I'm curious about what your chargeback structure is and how you're deployed out or working with teams. And I don't know if that's something to take offline and have a conversation about, but we're finding that we're sort of on this hourly chargeback that's so limiting to the work that actually needs to be done.
That's obviously key sponsor investment from the investment and allocation of resources from the highest level that you can manage for your team is critical for success. Let's see. Yeah, there's an awesome Harvard Business Review article about that. As far it's not exactly service design, but it's like how do you spin up an innovation process within 90 days? I forget. It's pretty cool. I recommend checking it out.
Yeah, we can probably talk to that in more detail after this, but we're also probably not the best people to talk to about
Yeah, exactly. So we're like, what we like to do is like, hi, person on the team who does that.
Yeah.
Are we set, ready to rock? All right.
There's only 3 of us, so we all have to.
It's a whole ecosystem. So, all right. I mean, this idea right here was just. I'm curious. First of all, how many people consider themselves like either a UX believer or a UXer? Right, I'm just curious. Oh wow, sweet. All right. So we are overall hitting right. Fair enough. Relatable message. That's awesome. How many of you have seen your like your team have to or need to or want, like evolve, like the nature, like what you pitched your service as to your internal clients or external clients changed, and you see, how do you see that? Do you see it keep continuing to change? Anyone? Pretty almost everyone. Yeah, I mean it's that's a big theme for us too. Where where service is changing.
Yeah, I think we're going to jump to a couple of working examples here. Looking at
Totally.
All
right.
Route can go on for hours.
Yep.
Yeah, so we're evidence-based. We don't get things right immediately. We like to think we do eventually. But I think one really important thing is it's easy to miss kind of the fun, challenging parts of the journey.
Totally cool. Yeah, and so, right, success is it's fun to talk about. It's fun to write a deck, to share a story about the thing that worked because, you know, isn't it great that things are great because they're, and so let's have a great story time, whatever. It's actually better to, we like to try to, hopefully, and hold us accountable, like, to share, like, the things that are hard also.
I can check it all day long. Yeah, failure's part of it, right? The sharp entry point of framing things is research and learning. You learn a lot by being accountable for those hypotheses and testing them. And I think our next talk is just going to be all gifts.
So, an example of a real project, Awesome Shop. How many of you have heard of Awesome Shop or used it, or, okay? So it was, it's one of those things where we had this hypothesis that working with a business collaborator, that essentially there's got to be a way to present the things that Target, the millions of things that Target has to offer online in a more relatable and like emphasize the cool stuff that people are talking about socially. How do we do that? And this is kind of a nutshell of that journey. And there was a bit of that wasn't just like, well, okay, there's a social thing, but then what does that mean? We kind of, as we were analyzing, we realized that this is going against a little bit of the traditional retail approach where, like, you know, shopping is all about the efficiency and quick conversion and all that kind of stuff, and you know, maybe a little bit of up-servicing or what have you. But this is, we're hitting, this hypothesis is at often some other spot where we're thinking that there's someone that just wants to hang out and window shop, which, you know, we started to, so we decided to design things that let us test that hypothesis. Turns out, like, how many of you have done some design on, like, retail web presences or, retail systems that, online commerce, it's like you've got this sort of, you're focused on that a lot of times presenting all these details and helping people with how they're like, we have this persona that we called the search and destroy shopper, and they'll have multiple tabs up, comparing features, comparing deals, just doing all this extra work and comparing that didn't have to do with this other persona we thought existed, which is like more of, I'm here for the pleasure. I want to be delighted and then inspired to buy. So we our early designs prove, like, this different experience, the search and destroy shoppers hate it. But then we did hear a small voice, a scent in that research as well, that there was maybe something there behind that other persona, and so we continued we focused our recruiting and selection, who were our research population, on that user. And it turned out that they are definitely out there, and we continue to focus on them and design a prototype. Quickly realized that we needed to get the data working as well, because this isn't just about presenting pretty pictures and having someone go through usability tasks with it. We needed to see if the content could live up to this promise, which is a huge aspect of, like, what would make this feasible, right? So totally working in parallel, getting the data in there, working with the behind the scenes, like, what kind of content do we need to present, and how much, and when, and where's it coming from, and so of course, as we're doing that, then we're getting the primitive, HTML prototypes going and putting them in front of people on usertesting.com, which is a pretty awesome resource that helping us hone and iterate. Try to let's see, skip some of the details of the story because I think Arthur has an awesome story next. That basically, once we got to the end, we feel like we did learn. We proved the hypothesis, but then we were about to sort of set this thing off, so it sort of ran on its own, and we wanted to make sure we did it in a way that we could still get learnings from it. So we instrumented it to measure interactivities that would help inform us for maybe the next time. So even then, it's like when the testing's never done, I guess.
Back to school too. I don't know if any of you had this last year. It was a kind of a targeted test. We mostly target the San Francisco area, but the site was lists are an average of 18 to 20 items. Target has a lot of school lists, so we're able to access a lot of them and look at what's on them. With 18 to 20 items, we had to make sure that fulfilling the school list online didn't take forever. We ran our competitors, Walmart and a bunch of others, through user testing and through other things to see how long it took to fulfill a school list on their sites. And it was 20 plus minutes, some of them over a half hour, which if you're a parent with multiple kids, you're not gonna do that. Because that's a nightmare. Driving to go to the stores quicker. So secondly, the site needed to be scannable and easy to refer to. If you're a parent, what you're probably doing during this process is looking at a sheet of paper. That's pretty regular because the kid brought it home at the end of last school year or it came in the mail. And the website, you're going back and forth between the two, and that back and forth is not fun. So we need to make sure that that process was good. And lastly, school shopping is expensive. So let's make sure we have an assortment of products that hit multiple price points, and we tell you what the price is throughout the entire thing so that you know how much you're actually spending. So we went in with those kind of goals. We started with design and testing. We went through multiple iterations of the site. And this is where there's a good example of failure, right? One of the things I really wanted from the start was importing the list, either through OCR or something like that. Import the list, translate it, make their cart magically, and they hit checkout and they're done. Yeah, it did not work. School lists are a nightmare. Products are called different things by different teachers, they're misspelled, there's kind of the obvious things like that. Some products don't exist, you'd be shocked how many products on school lists don't exist. Yeah, it would not work. School lists are all in different orders from different classrooms even. They're another mess. So there's no great way to import that stuff. We kind of mocked it up and played with kind of a mock scenario, and even if you could import a good chunk of the list, it still took longer to like double check that it's right and then go through the process of shopping for everything else. It's quicker just to start with an empty cart. So yeah, I had to give up on that. But it was good because in the end it turned out better. So while we were doing all this, the APIs and backend were getting set up. We were getting all the product data in. And we use these in kind of a bare bones version of the site to look at what data we actually have. What products do we have? What are the product names? What do they look like, right? Are they human readable? So we went through all those products and changed what information we needed to change and made sure variables like colors, right, lined up. So across different packs of markers, the colors were lined up so you could actually compare the markers on an even field. If we didn't have that backend, that API set up so we could visualize that data, there's no way we would have done that just through a spreadsheet. It would have been a nightmare. We wouldn't have caught the errors that we caught. So that parallel working was really important there. And then we launched the site. And when we launched it, we tested and monitored and tracked most things. So we tracked searches, so we were able to see what people were searching for and modify the search and how it works so we could catch Spanish terms. When people used human terms like Kleenex instead of facial tissue, we could alter our search to accommodate that kind of stuff. We tracked what people were putting in the baskets, as well as we pushed to Target. We could find, if they went out to Target, find something else to pop in that basket. So we could alter our product selection to accommodate that stuff as well. There's a lot of school districts that ask for toilet paper, which we didn't realize, but we're able to quickly pull that into our product selection so we can get that stuff as well for people. Yeah, testing monitoring was key to making this a success. In the end, it was a great site. Average shopping times were about 12 to 15 minutes, well below any of our competitors. Pretty darn successful. Yeah.
When do you deliver and what you product to be maintained by?
It depends on the project. So sometimes learning is the ultimate goal, and so the entire thing, as far as a work product, the learnings are what's delivered, and the rest was just a vehicle to get there. Other times, it depends, because if it is a team ready and whatnot, so we'll find ways to make systems as automated as possible, and then look for a group, because some of it's kind of ambiguous, where it's like, if another team would have done this, then it would have been on their plate. So it's a matter of that matchmaking and stuff. It hasn't gone one way. So,
Well,
yeah.
Yeah, so it does depend on the project. A lot of our answers are depends, which I know is not fulfilling, but the truth.
Sure. Yes. Mhm.
The importance of like being able to create the service of it, to move correct to the service that you're creating.
Mhm.
And I think that's some of the points of attention for a lot of other areas, like perhaps with Atari as well. That the API they don't want to change, but they want to create a new UX experience or something. So that's like one of the things trying
Right.
to grab the data.
It's really, exactly, it's incredibly hard. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes, like, we'll build APIs in front of other teams' APIs to help maybe bring in new capabilities that aren't being brought in by the others because maybe they have a different reason to exist and it would never have been on their roadmap. But, yeah, it's immensely empowering because it's like you're accountable. There's so much accountability, like again, for the design, even for the APIs, because then they're put to use right away and there's a tight feedback loop between both, and honestly, it's pretty helpful. Very much along that theme, yes?
How do you make the results of your current projects available for future ones? And the reason I bring that up is because the example of the OCR thing that didn't work as well as you wanted to, but maybe down the road you go, boy, you know, we came awfully close, you know, or you know, you have a need, and you know, how do you make that available so that you can easily find something that you might have done before?
Yeah, so everything we do is up on GitHub, and so we can pass that stuff back and forth pretty easily. Private GitHub accounts, obviously, but yeah, we make that accessible for anyone. OCR specifically, we were able to kind of do a feasibility study on that and exclude it before we really went into heavy duty coding on that because we knew that would be a long time. So instead of coding it, we made sure it was feasible first.
Well, and there's a lot of spikes, right? So some of these spikes are it's almost like some of them end up in like sort of GitHub junk drawers, right? That we, you know, just sort of really throw away research things. Right? We save that too. Yeah. So like, where would we save all of the like the human-computer interaction research stuff, or? Yeah. Yeah. We flatten it. I mean, yeah, the steps are done. All this, we do all of that. It's just that I guess some ways we're biased. We talk about the outcomes we're building toward because we're inherently doing that on a small team. And are we doing it as great as a team of everyone who does it separately in a different project or a different process with handoffs? That'd be up to the whoever is the recipient of the research. I mean, in some cases, probably not, but it gets us the good enough learnings to keep moving quickly and put things into the hands of people that where we can observe the behaviors and the results, not just there's just, yeah, I don't know. It's a big question. I don't know. Okay. Swing, almost missed, but yeah, let's keep going. We have 4 minutes left. So I'll be super quick on this. Just to put a highlight on one of the things that does help us evolve, because our team, like we go through these retros and we go through individual curiosities and pain points. Like I wish we would have made something easier to share on the prior project. How could we do that next time? Well, we try to keep a slice of our time available, right? It's a bit of an aspiration, but a lot of times it has worked out in the past where we you can think of it as 20% time or what have you, where we're trying to look at our workbench of tools or process or things that we're curious about and test some ideas sort of outside even like that bigger, the bigger projects that are going on the team. And some interesting things come out of that. One of them comes to mind is InnoSnap. InnoSnap is, anyone hear of that app? It's basically image recognition, where you can take a picture of a target ad and then get a shoppable list of products, right? So that actually, it's actually up for, it's nominated for a web right now. So Yeah, go and vote. We have 2 Joshes on our team. It would make the other Josh really happy. All right, Josh is represent. Yeah, exactly. Another one, so these little projects, little things that can become real things. It's kind of funny. A lot of them are throwaway, but not all of them. And so another one is Code with Target. I see a Code with Target t-shirt in the audience. And so Code with Target is this thing where it's a gameful way to get in contact with talent acquisition. Where so maybe you like to solve puzzles and you're curious about Target, and you have one of a certain variety of engineering disciplines behind you: iOS, web, Android, Java, what have you. There's little missions out there, and you take on a mission, you solve some challenges, and then get in contact with talent acquisition. That wouldn't have happened if we didn't have that sort of experimental time available. Tons of other things, tools, whatever. God, I'm filling up our last couple minutes with this, but basically we feel very fortunate to be in that situation, to be doing not just the evidence-based design projects, but this other stuff as well. We feel good about that situation and lucky for it.
Yeah, let's get that really quick.
Yeah. Skip that. Go to bit.ly/makeshare if you dig manifestos and collaboration.
It's on GitHub too.
Yeah, it's on GitHub.
Manifestos.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a few principles we work with. One of the primary ones is work with, not for. This principle in particular is for. Working for another part of the company locks you into the self-interest hierarchy. If you're working for another team, you're not working for the user, the customer, or whoever your end user is. Remember, you and that other team are part of the same company. The customer is the customer. Working with another part of the company changes that dynamic. The requirements become the user's requirements. It makes critique and collaboration possible on a level playing field, and products become better because you have a fully rounded team behind them where you're working with that other part of your company, not for the other.
So yeah, I mean, if likely you have things that are working really well on your team, and if they're really well-tested ideas, you might want to make them principles. Maybe you want to make your own manifesto and send out a link to us too. I'd be curious to check it out. But at least capture those things that are the essence and really solidify them. And things like for us, we found work with, not for, and working in parallel and working just very collaboratively are critical for us. Also,
Test and listen. That's a slide. Test early, test often. It improves your feedback, your focus, and your accountability. Every test interaction is a further chance to gain empathy with your entire team and your customer. We drag our engineers out on in-person interviews. They're probably coming for the food, but it's good for them. They learn a lot. Everyone on our team input helps out with research. Be informed and listen to the results. They'll help improve your work.
and so looks like a lot of you are UXers out here and whatnot. And what's funny is by just going through your normal disciplines, by using critique and getting integrating a variety of perspectives, using research to inform your designs and gather evidence, I mean, you are helping every team become more evidence-based.
More evidence-based you become, more collaboratively your assumptions are tested, the more lab style your team becomes. Thank you.
Thanks.